Absolutely not. And your body knows it. And so that's, I mean, that's why you keep eating. And sugar in fructose cuts off your satiety signals anyway. So you don't know if you're full or not. You know, and then the insulin makes you lazy and makes your hormones go out of whack and makes you store all that energy as fat. So you're adding fat to your body.
Colley, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, I guess I found it probably like a lot of people through Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and some of the mainstream things that are starting to happen now, I guess, over the last year or two. But I really jumped into it after a few years of trying to lose weight. So you know, at the time we're recording this now, I'm 39. And in my 20s, I was very active, rode bikes and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and had a very high metabolism. And it was like I could eat anything, nothing stuck. You know, I was 180 pounds the whole time. And I'm 5'10", 5'10" tall. And so, yeah, I mean, I just didn't have any trouble with weight until about my mid 30s. And so what happened in my mid 30s is that I was in a high pressure career. I was selling houses for one of the biggest home builders in the country. They were a top 30 builder in the nation, and the biggest one in my state and a couple of surrounding states at the time. And it was very high pressure. You know, there were millions of dollars on the line. If homes weren't selling, you didn't have a job, you know, that kind of thing. And so there was a lot of fast food. There was a lot of candy. There was a lot of sodas. And the pounds just started packing on. And, you know, I think I ended up at my heaviest, maybe 220 pounds. And it was to the point, you know, it wasn't to the point that I, you know, had a big protruding gut or, you know, the dad bod kind of thing. But it was to the point that I didn't really like going swimming with my kids. I didn't want to take my shirt off at a pool. You know, it was that kind of thing. I definitely felt pudgy and wasn't happy with how I looked. But more than that, just from an energy standpoint, I just couldn't maintain my energy throughout the days. It was just every day was a slog. You know, I would eat, have a sugar spike, I would have an insulin dump, feel super tired, and just, it's not good when you're at work and you can't, you know, seem to keep your head off the table. That's not good. So, but I mean, it's kind of the perpetual state that people live in, and nobody really talks about it. But, you know, from lunchtime to 3 o'clock, everybody's productivity is just shot. It's just almost nobody is really able to do well during those times, it seems like. And it's because we have, you know, sugar spikes and insulin dumps, right? So it's just, it's this vicious cycle. And, you know, what it did for me, of course, it packed on the pounds, it killed my energy. And I just started looking for solutions to that. I was 36 or 37 when I started trying to get really serious about getting a handle on it, because I didn't want to, you know, move into my 40s and 50s and just let the weight keep packing on and just keep feeling that way. And so the first thing that I started with was intermittent fasting. So I just skipped breakfasts, and then I would have a calorie controlled lunch. So probably 400 to 500 calories. And it wasn't carnivore. It was there's a local processor here that makes like I don't know, it's like this big, but it's like a pre-packaged lunch. It's called Stu's Clean Cooking, and it's local. And I loved those. They were great. But it would be, you know, brisket and green beans, or, you know, chicken and potatoes, or, you know, something like that. There were some barbecue options. I love barbecue. Being in Arkansas in the south of the US, you know. But so I would have that, but it was essentially calorie restriction for lunch. And then my wife would cook, you know, a healthy dinner for everybody, you know. And so we would have meat and a couple of vegetables and some bread, and, you know, but tried to limit the processed stuff. And I was trying to limit sugar at the time. And that worked pretty well. So that got me down to about 190 pounds in about, I guess, a year or so of doing that. But then the problem came that I just had intense cravings, just a huge sweet tooth. And so the following year, you know, I would have a breakfast cereal as a dessert, or, you know, or too much candy, or things just started creeping back in that shouldn't have been there. And so I gained 20 pounds back. And, you know, I got through that year and I was like, dang, this was so hard. And I think the reason that it was so hard to stay away from it is that I was intermittent fasting and calorie restricting. And so I was hungry. So I just, you know, I spent a year being hungry, and it did lower the weight. But then I had a year where I just couldn't keep myself really away from the snacks, and the weight came back. And so I was like, okay, I got to get a different solution to this. And again, you know, we all know what happens when the weight comes back. The energy level drops. Your hormones are all out of whack. You don't feel good. You don't perform well at work. All kinds of things. And so I started looking for a better solution. So I started looking at, okay, well, what are humans supposed to eat? I mean, I know it's not Twinkies, but what is it? Like, what is it supposed to be? Are we just supposed to eat salads all the time? Are we, if we want to maintain a certain weight, are we supposed to live in hunger? You know, should I just deal with being hungry all the time? And somewhere along that journey, I discovered Carnivore. And, you know, I think it was Joe Rogan was just talking about being on fire, and it was amazing, and all these things. And I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. And I think Jordan Peterson said, you know, people should just try it for 30 days and just see. And I was like, well, I've done all kinds of other things. I'll try that. You know, and actually I was early in my 20s. I had probably 6 months where I went full vegetarian, and I didn't feel good on that either. So I eventually just went back to a standard American diet. But yeah, I mean, I tried being vegetarian, and I was hungry all the time. I remember just being starving, and ended up resorting to just eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you know, which is obviously not a health food. So yeah, I never really had the interest in trying vegetarian or vegan or any of that for health purposes. Totally understood where people are coming from, you know, from an empathy standpoint with that. But so anyway, yes, I think I was going into being 38, and I thought, okay, I'll do this carnivore thing. So I tried it for a month, and it totally changed my life. I mean, my energy levels were just insane. I didn't have an afternoon crash. I didn't even feel hungry. I just felt full, you know, full all the time. It just felt amazing. And so, you know, I went into the second month and just kept doing it. And I went into another month and I kept doing it. And we did go on some trips, some family vacations, and there was some some, different foods that I wanted to try that, weren't available in our area, things like that. So it's been about a year since I started the carnivore thing. And there have been, a handful of meals like that, with family or on vacations or things like that that I've tried and done. But the interesting thing is that during all of this time, I've been listening to podcasts, like I've been listening to yours, but also, Anthony Chafee and Ken Berry and, everybody in the space. I've listened to probably, I can't even remember everyone's name right now, but yeah, I've listened to a lot of people in the space. And just, I feel like I've learned so much, and I just have so much gratitude for the way that I feel and the way that, the way that this information is now coming out.
So it's been a year.
Yeah.
How have you been eating in that year? Like, are you still doing the 2 meals a day? And
No, actually. So yeah. So what I did when I switched to carnivore, I was still on a calorie mindset. And I was like, okay, well, how many calories should I consume if it was all meat or eggs or something? So I just came up with a meal plan. And for me, it's 3 eggs and 3 slices of bacon in the morning, 2 hamburger patties for lunch, and then a pound of steak at dinner. And that's my ideal day. So if I eat that, that should be enough calories. Although I don't really believe in calories anymore. I think, I guess it was one of the Anthony Chafee podcasts that was talking about, it's just totally irrelevant to count calories now. If you're eating this way, just eat till you're full, and it has worked amazingly well. And so I no longer have any problems being hungry. I don't really get hungry throughout the day. If I do get a little bit hungry in the afternoon between lunch and dinner, I'll just have some beef jerky or something like that. But yeah, nothing too crazy like that. That's the ideal day.
And how good is it not to have those crashes in the afternoon?
Oh, it's phenomenal. I mean, you can just sail through your day. And, so I'm in real estate. It's, my day, I try to wake up at 4 a.m. I'm trying to get some work done, from between like 5 and 7. And, then have a little time with the family before the kids are off to school. And, then eat my breakfast, shower, get ready for work, and then be back at it at about 9. And I mostly work from home. So, but having that all day energy is just really phenomenal, because I don't really worry about scheduling things. I mean, I'm very organized with my schedules. It's, every day is really stacked with things, but I don't really worry about putting things in the afternoon now because I feel like I can get them done.
And yeah, I mean, I imagine that energy does work well for a job where you've kind of always got to be on the ball sales wise.
Oh, it's 24/7. I mean, people will call at any time, so you almost have to be able to answer the phone anytime and be on mentally. Yeah. And then there's a lot of driving and going places and, so I listen to a lot of podcasts to and from in my travels, as well. So,
yeah. So you're actually talking to your family before we got started. How have they taken to this? Do they think Dad's a bit weird or?
Yeah, there's still a little bit of that. Look, I also should have mentioned my wife we kind of made a deal because she was very worried about the cholesterol aspect. And she said, okay, 6 months in, you're going to get blood work done. And then every 3 months after that, you need to get blood work done. And what was interesting is that 6 months in, blood work was pretty good. There were some kidney markers that they were a little bit worried about. And then I think 3 months after that, bloods came back even better. And then this latest round, they came back even better. So yeah, so she's not worried about me anymore. And she's toyed with the idea of doing it, but she just doesn't think she can live without carbs. She's just not ready. I think, and I haven't pushed anybody to do anything. I have tried to give my kids a lot more steak than they used to get, so that's good. But and they love steak, and I love to grill, so it's perfect. But yes, I mean, we haven't started doing any kind of dietary restrictions for the kids. I'm going to let that be a choice for them, but hopefully, as they get older and I can maintain great health, they'll see it as a lifestyle they might want to do as well.
In your job, as we've talked about, it's kind of go sales all the time and going different places and talking to people at all hours of the day. From a results point of view, do you feel like it's just changed things up for you?
Yeah, so I really started this at a time when I had started a real estate team. So I was trying to grow, and multiple things happen when you start a real estate team. If you're used to living on your own production, what you are used to selling, and then you bring in team members and you're trying to help them get their careers established, you have to keep selling the amount of houses that you are used to selling and then help them start to sell too. And then there's a lot of back end paperwork that needs to happen, and websites and systems and apps and all these things that need to get put in place to be tools and systems for the agents. And so, that year was really hard. I don't think I would have been able to do it the way that I did it without that level of energy throughout the year. And actually we've landed a fantastic client. So it's interesting because I spent a lot of time in the back end building marketing systems and, all kinds of branding and all kinds of things. And then I took those systems to a local builder here, and we're a few weeks away from announcing a big construction project that we landed. And so, yeah, it led to a lot of output that I don't think I would have been able to do otherwise. And so anyway, so we have this new bigger client, and we're opening our own independent brokerage now to service that client and clients of that type. And so kind of a niche specialty brokerage. And so, yeah, it's like I said, it's been life-changing. And I can't always, it's hard to explain it until somebody has felt it, until they've really experienced it. That's one of the challenges, because we're surrounded by people who think eating so much meat is going to clog your arteries and it's going to kill you early. And, especially in America, everyone has spent their lives told that, you got to be very low fat and you should limit your red meat consumption. But sugar is okay. You can eat what, you can basically eat any kind of processed anything that you want. But you really got to watch out for the meat. And it's just the opposite. I walk around or I interact with people, and I have so much empathy for people because they're living in a world that is surrounded, where they're surrounded by dietary choices that they don't even know that they're making. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's very it's very sad to think that a lot of the time people think they're doing the right thing,
Yeah,
and it's just no one's educated in this stuff. And every marketing message out there is designed to lead you in the wrong direction.
it's true.
But people think I'm saving money, I'm buying the right thing. This is says low fat, so this must be good for me. Finally, I'm going to do it this time, and it's all just leading to more problems.
Well, the diets inevitably fail because you actually are starving. You're not going to win over starvation. You're either going to eat or you're going to die. So, like if that's the calorie restricted stuff works for a little while, but then it yo-yos back and people struggle with this over and over and over. And I think it's just because of the sugars. I think if you just get rid of the carbs and you get rid of the sugars, those cravings go away, and it's going to taste good. Like if you see cookies, you see cake, they're going to taste good. But again, it's kind of hard to explain that you don't actually have the craving for it. It's like, yeah, I could, but I also know how I'm going to feel after it. I think maybe one of the best things that I did is, I think it was maybe after the first month of doing it. There was some event and we went to, and I had some margaritas and I had some tacos and I loaded up on chips and I was like, all right, I'm back to the carbs. It's fine. And I felt like crap that next day. I mean, I just didn't do anything. It was like, luckily it was a Saturday night. And so it was a Sunday and it was just, I was just worthless. I felt horrible. And it just reminded me, oh yeah, don't do this to yourself. You do have a choice, And but yeah, it's interesting to think about living so many years actually feeling like that and not even realizing that you could feel differently. That's one of the surprising things about it.
I think you hit on a really important word there before when we're talking about, people eating a regular style of diet is starvation. So
yeah.
Even if people are not calorie restricting, even if they're eating like unlimited bowls of cereal every day and stuff like that, they're still starving themselves.
Oh yeah. Well, you're definitely not getting all the nutrients you need. Absolutely not. And your body knows it. And so that's why you keep eating. And sugar and fructose cuts off your satiety signals anyway. So you don't know if you're full or not. And then the insulin makes you lazy and makes your hormones go out of whack and makes you store all that energy as fat. So you're adding fat to your body. And then, due to the Randall cycle, which if anybody hasn't heard of that, you should go look into it. But it's basically that your cells, if they're full of glucose, can't even use ketones. So you actually can't even burn your own fat if your blood sugar is too high. So yeah, if your blood sugar is constantly high, you can't even burn the fat that your body has. So, your body thinks it's starving to death. So it's trying to get you to eat more and more and more, which you do. And it's adding more and more and more fat onto your body. And you can't even use the fat. So it's a really bad situation. So, when I'm walking around and I see people who are overweight and it's clear that they're struggling with this, God, I just have so much empathy for them because they don't realize the solution to it because they've been lied to their whole lives, from the food companies and the food pyramid here in the US and, and even all of the diets, that kind of came out of the low fat craze and everything and the Jenny Craig and the different things. Again, it's all calorie restriction without allowing yourself to have enough fat to actually run off of it and to feel nourished. But you know, you need the protein to grow skin and bones and muscle and all of that, and you need the fat to run the energy systems in your body and to efficiently run your brain. And yeah, that's just it's sad to see that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain it to people without it feeling, you know, judgmental, you know. I feel like the best way to come at it is just through empathy, because I was there too, you know. There was a time I managed a pizza restaurant, and I lived on pizza basically for a year too. So
Yeah,
that was not the healthiest time.
yeah. I agree that empathy is important, because, you know, we could talk about, well, this is all personal choice. And, you know, I mean, it
Right.
is, but we could say this is all personal choice, and, you know, they're doing
You
it
can't
for
make a
themselves,
choice
etc.,
you don't
etc.
know you have.
Exactly.
You
Spot
can't make
on.
a choice you don't know you have.
If you've had no education about nutrition and what
Right.
nutrition actually means, like not fake nutrition, you don't know, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't know there's an option out there, then yeah, you can't make a choice. So yeah, I agree with you. Empathy is important. So if you were in a situation where you were talking to someone about this and they said, look, I don't know how you've got so much energy. I don't know how you do all this. There's just no way I could do it. How do you get the energy, and how do I get some of that? What would you explain to them?
Well, I do have this conversation, and it's a hard conversation to have sometimes. People ask me that sometimes, and I just kind of start by saying sugar is the main culprit to start with. You know, I think for most people, if they would just start by not consuming sodas or sweet tea is a big thing here, lemonades, things like that, that would cut out a lot of the problem to start with. And if you just kind of track, if let's say you just did a week of that and you just track, do I feel better or do I feel worse? You'll probably feel better. So just keep going in that direction, you know? And then the next thing to realize is that the actual amount of sugar that you can have before it's toxic is about 6 teaspoons per day. That's not much, you know? And it's a mixture of glucose and fructose. That's important for people to understand. You know, your body actually produces its own glucose. You don't need to ingest it. And fructose is damaging to your cells. So you really don't need it. And if you feel like you have to have it, like for most of this year, I still drank like I have a tea in the morning. I have a caffeine tea from Zest Tea, which it's almost as much caffeine as coffee. I'm gonna try to wean myself off of caffeine too, but it's really helpful when you wake up super early in the morning. So I've allowed myself to keep doing that. But for the most part, I would only put maybe, you know, 3 teaspoons of sugar in it, if any. And but knowing like that's half your daily limit. So you can't have anything else after that. You shouldn't, you know. So if you can start to limit that and start to understand that, I think that's really beneficial, and you'll see huge results from that. So it's the same thing, you know, if people will go on like a paleo diet, right? Still veggies, still definitely meat there, but you'll feel better, you know. Then the other thing to really also think about is how many things just break down into sugar in your system. So if you realize you feel better not eating sugar, and then you realize, oh, bread turns into sugar, rice turns into sugar, potatoes turn into sugar. Most of these vegetables turn into sugar. All the fruits turn into sugar. Like, okay, so it all these plant materials, sort of the ones that we can't even digest all of them, but the ones that we can digest, and especially the ones that have been processed, and so they've been broken down into a powder and then turned into some kind of product, whether it's a chip or a bread or some kind of a donut or something. All of those things are just immediately turned into sugar, and you will feel worse after you eat them. And so, a lot of people know that, drugs are bad. Alcohol is bad. There's a whole group of, Alcoholics Anonymous, and they have a program to get somebody to move away from that lifestyle because of how damaging it is. And, sugar and carb consumption doesn't inhibit your driving ability. So it doesn't make you a danger to society, but it burns you out from the inside out. And one of the interesting things that I found, in these podcasts was that you can get fatty liver disease as an alcoholic, but you can also get fatty liver disease from fruit juice and overconsumption of sugar and carbs and all these things. Okay, so if alcohol is this distilled form of poison that gives you fatty liver disease, is sugar just not distilled as much, but gets you to the same place? And maybe it does,
Yeah. So just on that, Dr. Robert Lustig's got an awesome talk about that. And sugar is, he's got a paper as well. It's like sugar is alcohol without the buzz, basically, because it's the same pathway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sugar tastes great, but doesn't give you a buzz. Alcohol tastes horrible, but gives you a buzz, But neither one are really, you don't need them. You don't need it. It's just not necessary. And the thing is, it takes you back. If you get drunk, you lose the whole next day. Right? I mean, let's be honest. You're not doing anything that next day. You're dehydrated. You feel horrible. You're just recovering from the toxins. Well, if you spend your whole life loaded up on sugar, your body is just constantly trying to recover from those toxins all the time. So it's like a mild hangover that nobody even realizes that they have. But that's what I feel like when I go back to carbs. If I have a cheat meal or whatever, it's like I'm never happy with myself the next day because I don't feel good. It's to the point now I'm like, it's just not worth it.
So it's your body does do a good job of cleaning up, but it can only do so much when a standard diet is almost like waging war on your body, right?
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. Yeah. And so I actually look at sugar now like I would look at a night of binge drinking. So if it's a birthday party and, the cake is just amazing and whatever, I really consider it based on, okay, do I want to have the hangover? And if there's nothing going on the next day and it's, and I can take a couple of days to get my ketosis kicked back in and I'm not worried about it, sure. And I don't feel bad about it. It's like, it's a social event. It's, it's okay. But I know what it's doing to me, and it's a choice. and there are plenty of times I've you know, had cookies or cakes or whatever available that I'm not taking it, because I don't again, there is no buzz, and I don't want the hangover. So
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think the longer you're on carnivore, the more you realize that those things, when you have had cookies and stuff like that, it's just mouth pleasure. After that,
yeah,
after it like literally it passes your throat, that's it, right?
yeah,
There's nothing after that, right? Except
yeah.
maybe wanting more.
Right, yeah. That well, and that's the thing. I think you know, if you are on carnivore and you're really dedicated to doing it, it's dangerous to do that too, because it's not. You never know if it's going to be some kind of a trigger that just kicks you back into, you know, oh, your satiety signals are gone. Oh, now you're just starting to crave more carbs. Oh, now, and you get back, and it just drags you down, you know. So I think you want to be really careful about that. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, I don't want to. I never pretend to people that I have been so strict, you know, for the last year that that I'm like Superman or something. No, I've enjoyed a few things, but again, I've seen the downside, and so I'm like, oh yeah, it's actually not worth it. And it takes a couple of days maybe to get back to full ketosis, and you know, I do test myself to see if I'm in ketosis with strips, like test strips. And that was interesting. I mean, I started doing that at the very beginning because I just wanted to see how long it took me to get in. And I think it was in the second week I was in. And now it's usually like this next day or the second day if you break it. So it comes back faster for me anyway. So
Oh, nice.
yeah. Yeah. But I'd just rather be in it all the time. Like, and that's the other thing about doing the test strips at least a couple of times a week and just like making sure is that it gives me a metric to it's like, oh, I got a test coming up, you know. I don't want to break it. I don't want to break my streak. It's actually kind of helpful for that. It's the same thing as stepping on a scale, you know, and knowing where your weight's at and going, okay, even just stepping on it and looking at the number once a day keeps you more honest throughout the day. You know, what gets measured gets manifested. Is that what it is? There's some saying about that.
It's something like that, measured and managed or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't manage what you don't measure or something like that.
Yeah. So, Colley, how can people reach out to you if they want to get in contact? Do you have a website or social media or anything?
Yeah. Well, we just started LoneRockRealty.com, so you can do that. You know, if somebody's in the Northwest Arkansas area, that's what we do. But you can also reach out through. I have a YouTube channel as well, and it's Lone Rock Home Team. And so you can see videos about our area and all of that good stuff.
Nice. Well, I'll link to those below. And Colley, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And like I said, this lifestyle has really just changed the game for me. I mean, it's one of those things, and to see people who've done it, you know, like yourself. So how many years have you done it?
It's coming up on 2 now.
Okay. Yeah. And there are other people that are, you know, 7 years, 15 years, you know, that are just, and they're doing great. And all their biomarkers are where they're supposed to be. And it's just, let me just bring it back to, you know, I started searching for what are humans supposed to eat. And I think this is it. This is what we're supposed to do. I think the ability to pull new energy from plant material is a fallback mechanism. And I think it should be seen that way. You know, if we were on the Great Plains and there were no bison and we were starving to death, if we, you know, we could find some berries to get us through. That's the purpose of that ability. But if that's all you do, it has some really negative consequences.